Welcome to a new edition of FO Talks. I'm Peter Isackson, Fair Observer's Chief Strategy Officer. Today I'm joined by Kanwal Sibal for I don't know how many times we've talked to each other. It's always a great pleasure. Kanwal is a career diplomat, former Indian Foreign Secretary and ambassador to several prominent nations, including Turkey, Egypt, France, and Russia. So he's been around quite a lot. Kanwal is also a keen observer of everything going on in the world today and always has insightful things to say. So what I want to do today, Kanwal, is I live in Europe, and most of my news comes from Western sources. And there isn't much news we're getting through those sources about India. So I'm curious what you can tell us about what's going on in the world today in West Asia, a war that everyone knows about, and what impact this is having on India at different levels, at the official level, but also at the popular level, the way ordinary people are reacting to it. So could you just share your thoughts on that with us?
I think it's a very relevant question you've asked, because in many ways, our entire policy towards the Gulf countries and in West Asia in general is now facing a very severe challenge. We've had, and we do have, excellent relations with UAE. In fact, the UAE is the hub of our Gulf policy. The closest relationship we have in West Asia at many levels is with UAE. Our trade has gone beyond $70 billion. It's also the hub for us for our trade with Africa. It's a very, very important communication hub for us because we have 3.76 million people of Indian origin working in the UAE. There are big plans between India and the UAE in terms of what the UAE wants to achieve by 2030 and beyond. Planning for a post-oil phase and building up an economy of the future with focus on artificial intelligence, green energy, green hydrogen, semiconductors, all that stuff. And they have a lot of money. They have got a very big sovereign fund. They want to have closer defense ties with India, which we reciprocate. And then they want to have a food corridor between India and the UAE because we export a lot of food stuff. And this can be a very viable strategy in terms of food security. As also, the DP World and all, they manage some of our ports, etc., etc. I won't go into detail beyond this. And then there was, if you recall, the ITU2 project. India, Israel, United States, UAE, as part of the Abraham Accords and making Israel an integral part of the region and benefiting from some, advantages Israel could bring to the region in terms of technology or what have you. Of course, all this now is a bit up in the air. And there is the India-Middle East Economic Corridor, which was announced during our presidency of the G20, in which UAE and Saudi Arabia were critical stages of this corridor, which would have then theoretically on paper gone to Jordan and then to Haifa. But now with Israel, being a bit in the boondocks in the region, now Italy is pressing very hard that we should develop this corridor with the European end of it in Trieste or in some Italian port. The French are interested that we extend it to Marseille. The Greeks, of course, originally it was planned from Haifa to go to Greece in Piraeus. So Greece is also very interested. Altogether, we have about under 10 million people of Indian origin in West Asia, about $40 billion of remittances every year from our expatriates. About 50% of our oil and 60% of our LPG comes from this region. So any disturbance of this region any instability actually does the greatest damage to any country is that to India, because of what I underline. Now, China, of course, was getting 80% of Iranian oil, but that is only about 8%, 6 to 8% of its global oil needs. So it's not as if they're dependent on Iran. Iran is dependent on them. Then, of course, they have a much bigger petroleum reserve and much more financial power at their command to be able to tide over difficulty. Russia is not at all dependent on oil in this region, although as part of OPEC Plus, they have an interest in making sure that the demand-supply curve in oil remains favorable to the oil-producing countries. But no other country has these kind of equities in this region. Now, I forgot to mention Iran. Now, we have always kept our doors open to Iran, despite the fact that Iran has been under sanctions, and the United States has, in the past, through the set of sanctions, forced us to stop buying oil from Iran when Iran was our second biggest oil supplier. We have very important connectivity projects which geopolitically are very significant and fit into this entire concept of multipolarity. One, of course, is the Chabahar project, which would have given us access to Afghanistan and on to Central Asia. The other is the international North-South corridor linking the western coast of India through Iran, through the Caspian Sea, and could also bypass the Caspian Sea to southern Russia. Russia very deeply interested in this project because if it becomes viable, then the time taken for transshipment of goods from India to Russia and vice versa is reduced considerably, and so are the costs. So these are the kind of, and then of course I must also add that Iran is the major power in this region, even though a beleaguered power, but the major power in this region. And it is a Shia country. So in the context of maintaining a balance between Shia and Sunni powers in this region, it is important for us to have a good relationship with Iran, with the result that despite pressures on us by the United States, we've kept our doors to Iran open, as I said. Now, you remember the Iranian ship was sunk for fun, as Trump says, by the US Navy when it came to participate in our annual fleet review. It was an Iranian ship invited by us, Iranian Navy ships, 3 of them invited by us. So we've kept that channel open also. Our Prime Minister has visited Iran, the Iranian presidents, more than one president have visited India. Our Defense Minister has also, a few months ago, gone to Iran. So I'm giving you the full picture of where we are in terms of this region. Now, the problem for us is that we are very friendly with the Gulf countries, very friendly, including Oman, very friendly with Iran, very friendly with Israel, and very friendly also in many ways with the United States. So what do? We can't afford to take sides because the equities we have are so big and so delicate that if we start taking sides, then we'll suffer at one end or the other. So this puts a certain limit to our public positioning on this issue. So what we are doing is to try and do quiet diplomacy. Our Prime Minister has spoken to all the leaders concerned. Our Foreign Minister has been in touch with these leaders of the region, and our National Security Advisor was very recently, a couple of weeks ago, in Saudi Arabia and in UAE in order to, I suppose, see how we could play some kind of a quiet backroom diplomatic role to try and prevent things from flaring up. Though, mind you, there's nothing much we can do with the real source of this wretched war, which is the United States of America. The United States of America is relying on Trump's favorite field marshal, that is Asim Munir of Pakistan, which is a bit of a issue for us in terms of its implications. The scope for any active diplomacy on India's part, visible diplomacy, is limited. There are people in India, the opposition and others, who say that India should not be passive. India should be conscious of its own strength and therefore take a position. But I am personally, and I've written to that effect, that doesn't serve our interest. We should be cautious and play a quiet role behind the scenes and not overextend ourselves, because there's nothing we can do to actually influence Trump's extremely erratic behavior and policies.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's the man who's going to provide the solution.
Yeah. So if I can interrupt you on that point, because you're talking about all the channels of diplomacy that presumably are open. India has always been in a position of having a conversation with everyone in the room, really, and therefore could have played the role that Pakistan has stepped up to play. Why didn't that happen?
Oh, it's quite easy to explain. Number one, Pakistan is in a very difficult situation. Very difficult situation. It has signed this defense pact with Saudi Arabia, and it can still happen, if Saudi Arabia is attacked, its energy, oil installations are attacked, should Trump decide to violate the ceasefire and start bombing Iran again to reduce the country to the Stone Age, as he says. Now, if that sort of a thing happens, then Iran has made it known that they'll attack all the countries who are providing air bases and allowing their airspace to be used. And the obvious target would be the energy infrastructure of the Gulf countries, in which the American firms have very big share, including Aramco. Now, if that happens, then and if the Saudis invoke the defense pact, what does Pakistan do? Pakistan has a 700 or more kilometer long border with Iran. As you know, last year they exchanged some missile attacks against each other. There are issues of terrorists operating from one side of the border to the other side, because in Balochistan there's a bit of a problem, and some agencies are operating in Pakistan to keep that part of Iran, eastern Iran, on the boil a little bit. Then there is 30% of population of Pakistan, maybe more, maybe 40%, but certainly 30 to 40% are Shias. And there are 30% Shias in the Pakistani armed forces.
Oh, really?
And those Shias are very pro-Iran. So Pakistan has to do somersaults to make sure that somehow things remain under control. And they have utilized Trump's fascination for bemedaled, upgraded field marshals, because he thinks that Pakistan can do its bidding and do exactly what the Americans want messages to be conveyed. They can rely on Pakistan to that effect. Now, the other thing is that there is a question of simple security. Now, an ideal interlocutor would have been Oman. And Oman did play a role, and to the extent that one can believe what the Omani foreign minister said, the Iranians made major concessions. Yeah. But Trump repudiated that. Now, if no Gulf country is in a position to be a mediator, then Pakistan steps in, because it is bordering Iran. The Iranians can travel there without fear of being killed by the Americans or the Israelis, and that's what Arakchi said. That physically it is the most secure place. And then Pakistan is an Islamic country. So
my
all these factors have played in their favor, and India doesn't have those kind of talking points in its favor to be an interlocutor. Should we have wanted to become one? And I'll conclude with that. Even if that door was open to us, I would have very firmly said, for heaven's sake, don't make sure yourself a hostage to Trump's idiosyncrasies and his egomania.
So
because
that
you'll fall flat on your face.
yes, that's my question is can Pakistan be effective, or can anyone be effective? And then I'll go beyond that and say, is diplomacy actually possible in the age of Trump? Does do negotiations have any substance in today's world?
Not the way Trump is handling negotiations. While the negotiations are going on and they're exchanging 20-point plan on the one side, 14-point plan on the other, and and it's being said that they might have a kind of a framework of an agreement, and they might actually open the door for a 30-day period during which they can negotiate the more difficult issues. Or the Iranians say that we can first focus on opening the Strait of Hormuz by making concessions on both sides, and then we will look at further things. The nuclear issue can be discussed later. Now, the point is, while these negotiations are going on, and if for example, one were to believe, and it's not impossible that if some kind of negotiations are going on, a channel of communication is open. But he undermines his own negotiators, that while they're trying to build a sense of confidence with the other side, that we are trying to inch closer to some kind of an agreed solution, this guy says, I'm going to wipe you off the face of the earth. He just said it a couple of days ago, or back you to this, bomb you to this, or he just said that I want unconditional surrender, and we will select a new acceptable leadership of Iran. Now, how do you expect the Iranian negotiators to seriously negotiate and put any trust in the other side if the leader, their leader, is saying things? Even if they were to, you can't take the risk at that level. You can't say, oh, we know this man, he's erratic, he may say one thing for his audience and this and that, but in reality, he may be open to this or that. This is not how it works. This is not how it works. You have to see his conduct. He has antagonized everybody, including his allies. He's making territorial claims even on his allies. He's wrecked all around. Therefore, how can they trust this man? And he does all these things while at the same time pretending that a deal is in the offing. And of course, if the deal is not there, he just said that there'll be a big glow over Iran. He's set on Iran with nuclear weapons now.
Yeah. So, given what Trump is personally, is there? Okay, let's look at it a different way. Trump has done everything it's created the impression you've just described, that he's unreliable, that there's no way you can have any kind of faith in anything he says one way or the other. Even as someone who wants to attack and destroy an entire civilization, we don't believe he'll actually do that. And yet, the idea is still in his head and he keeps coming back to it. At the same time, anything that can point in the direction of some kind of agreement, some kind of stable relationship in the future is impossible. It just doesn't enter into his conversation. What does this mean for the rest of the world? I know for Iran, obviously, they cannot trust him. The more you negotiate, the more likely it is that you will be attacked with a surprise attack. But what about the rest of the world, and especially in India? What about the average Indian? What do they think about the reliability of global politics today, given that the U.S. is still seen as the leader, the major hegemon?
A couple of things. One, that we are caught in a bit of a cleft because our biggest relationship today in terms of trade, services, technology, investment is the United States.
Yeah.
In fact, our bilateral trade in goods and services has gone up to almost $240 billion. Uh, the American companies potentially are the most important investors in India. And there are certain technologies, both military and non-military, which the United States is in best position to share with us. Now, China has made leaps and bounds in certain technological domains, the most advanced ones, artificial intelligence, robotics, and stuff, quantum and stuff. But China is not going to share technologies with us, rare earths or whatever. Russia doesn't have these technologies. They themselves want these technologies. So that's not a source. Europe, yes, to some extent, they can be providers of these technologies, but they don't have all of them. There's rare earths and semiconductors and stuff like that, and they're still lagging behind. So therefore, if India, with its ambitions to be a developed country by 2047, which is a long way away, but if we were to make sure that our economy continues to do well, prosperity levels continue to grow, we have 1.4 billion population to take care of. Therefore, we have to be extremely careful about not doing anything which can compromise our own ambitions and aspirations. Even if we know what the United States is, what Trump is, and we know that America can never be a fully reliable partner. I mean, history shows that it's not only limited to India. It is the case with every other country, including its allies. The manner in which Trump is trashing South Korea and Japan and Europe, of course. Anyway, Canada.
Everybody.
That's on the one hand. The other hand is that, on the other hand, everybody sees what America is up to, what Trump is up to. This kind of might is right approach to international diplomacy, wrecking the global system after having played a major role in creating it, subverting the WTO and the international economic order. All this tariffs business, slapping tariffs on all countries without thought. So all then walking out of 66 international organizations and bodies, trashing every day the United Nations, etc., etc. So everybody sees that America is not only not a reliable partner, but if this is something which has happened structurally to American politics and society, then there's a big problem ahead for everyone, including India. And therefore, you have to be cautious. And therefore, you have to keep hedging, although the hedging possibilities in our case are somewhat limited because of our relationship with China. The obvious thing would be India, Russia, China getting together and forming the core of this multipolar system with Brazil and others joining in. But frankly speaking, until India and China are able to establish ties of genuine friendship, which is unlikely in the foreseeable future, we have to maintain the US option by being in the Quad or Indo-Pacific, even though that is losing its luster and the kind of the reliance we put on these organizations to deter China. I think that's now open to question. So to answer your question, then to sum it up, the Indian public, especially the Indian business and the Indian technology sectors, which are closely linked to the Silicon Valley, they are strong supporters of the US relationship. The political class and the public is generally very wary and in some cases even negative about the United States. So this is what the picture is.
Yes. So it's a very complex picture. Do you have any, you spoke about the close relationship with the UAE earlier. Do you have any insight into how the UAE is reacting now to the confusion that Trump has created, which is more than confusion, it's a direct threat to the well-being of the UAE itself. And what is this likely to bode for the future? Will any of the Gulf countries maintain the same relationship they had previously, whatever the outcome of the war is? And everyone's expecting that the US is not going to come out victorious. So whether it's some kind of compromise or just a humiliation similar to Vietnam, we don't know. But what do you know about how the Gulf countries are thinking about their relationship with the US, notably as hosts of US military bases?
Few things. One is that the open antagonism now between the UAE and Saudi Arabia is going to be very damaging to the Gulf as a whole. They have been involved in rivalry, which has expressed itself in supporting opposition forces in Yemen and in Somalia and in the Horn of Africa, which is and even in Libya. So if the West Asian countries were united, it gives them much more weight in terms of their influence, regional and global influence. Once they are divided and two major countries within the Gulf are openly fighting against each other now, this means that both of them and the others around lose bargaining power with the United States and with the rest of the world, because they are forcing other countries to somehow make choices, which countries would be very reluctant to make, because both countries are very important in their own way. So Saudi Arabia cannot be ignored. So that is one part. Second, of course, it plays directly into the hands of Israel, because Israel would want these countries to be at loggerheads with each other. The more they are loggerheads with each other, the less they are able to then forge any front against Israel's expansionism in the region. Because Israel is eating into the Arab world territorially. And these countries, more they are divided, the less they will be able to put up any kind of front against Israel, especially now when the UAE has forged even closer ties with Israel, with reports that Israel has positioned its people to man the Iron Dome in the UAE. So that is another fissure in the region, which is not at all to the advantage of these countries. The third is that they have no choice, because willy-nilly they can't accept Iranian hegemony. So if United States is stalemated or defeated or whatever else, the net result is that Iran becomes a dominant power and a Shia power. So these countries cannot accept that kind of a future. So what do? If they get rid of the United States on the ground, that, well, rid is a strong word, if they distance themselves from the United States to say, look, your bases are the reason why we've been attacked. And we've seen that your bases provide us no security. In fact, your bases have been damaged. And you, in fact, neglected our security, and whatever assets you had, you provided those to Israel for its security. In other words, you let us down. So what was then the advantage to us of buying so many arms from you and providing you bases and this and that? Therefore, we must have a relook at our security relationship with you. But then, what are their choices? They can't go to Russia, they can't go to China, they can't go to India in a limited way and there. So willy-nilly, therefore, they have to make sure that they keep the Americans in the region. So I think it's a nightmare for them. I think
Well,
Trump's attack on Iran was such a stupid decision for this region, such an injurious decision for this region, that they have now to live with its consequences.
okay, so there's a major factor you've just alluded to, and that is the reason that decision was taken. A lot of people say, and that pushed Trump into that position. Can Trump come back? Can he break his relationship with Israel by renegotiating everything with all the partners and coming up with a settlement that doesn't depend on Netanyahu and his government? Is that possible?
No, there are two factors, I think. One, of course, is that we have seen currently, and it's to the great advantage of Israel, that the entire focus is on Iran and the United States and the Gulf countries. And Israel is out of the picture. Nobody talks about Israel.
Exactly. This is
And Israel is attacking Lebanon, occupying parts of Lebanon. Although, mind you, the ceasefire included ceasefire in Lebanon, but Israel is violating that, and America is saying nothing at all. So they're giving Israel a free hand. And mind you, unless the Israeli part of the equation is not tackled on a durable basis, and Israel continues to do what it wants, not only in Gaza, but in Syria and in Lebanon, and more particularly in the West Bank. Nobody is focusing as much as they should on that. So the conflict will simmer. It will simmer. And number two is that Trump is so beholden, and he's not the only president, but he's so beholden to the Jewish lobby in the United States and in the media and the Congress and Hollywood and everything else, and his financiers and stuff like that. He can't disown them. He can't disown them.
So if not disowning them is one thing, but actually negotiating something that, let's say, is reasoned in terms of America first, focusing on what the U.S. interests are in the world. If he could do that, would Israel accept just to be neglected, not disowned, but neglected?
No.
Could he simply ignore Israel and say, "Look, we've been with you all along. We followed you, whether they admit that they followed or not. We've been shown our solidarity with you at every point, but at this point we have to make decisions that only concern our national interests, and you'll have to make your own decisions about your national interest." Isn't that possible? I mean, in a rational world, wouldn't that be
I was going to say that. I said I'm smiling because you are talking irrationally. So, but that's not how policy is being made in the White House these days. See, there is absolutely no reason for Trump to have attacked Iran. In fact, they joined hands, Israel and the United States, to attack Iran. So the entire thing has been driven by Netanyahu over the years, and he finally found Trump ready to do this. Iran has not attacked the United States. The United States may have its concerns about Iran's policies in the region, its conduct and internal conduct and this and that. Some of these grievances that the United States may have against Iran, from the American point of view, may be well-founded. But the point is that Iran has not attacked the United States of America. And Trump, now, the way Trump is talking, that the lunatics, if they had, we saved them, we saved the entire world because they were going to use nuclear weapons against the United States and against the world itself. I mean, if you have that kind of a discourse, then then you are not in a position to make a rational decision, assess rationally what should be done in order to have a reasonable compromise with Iran, give them space that they need, have a realistic solution to the outstanding problems. But then he says, I want unconditional surrender. Remember, he told Vance, well, when he was there in Pakistan while negotiating with the Iranians, he said, Vance rang me and I told him, no, I'm not satisfied with 90% or 95% concession. I want 100% from Iran. Now, that's not negotiation, that's humiliation. So, so I can't see him and the system which has now been created and the discourse and the demagoguery that is now being promoted against Iran, including by the Secretary of State and everybody else, about Iran on the threshold of using nuclear weapons against the entire world, that kind of stuff. Now, once you raise your discourse and your rhetoric to this level, then whatever the agreement you have to reach has to show that you have succeeded in achieving your objective. But if your rhetoric is at 100 feet and you manage to have a solution which only rises to 10 feet, then I think it's a big political disaster for Trump if he were to go back to the...
But Trump is very good at changing his objectives from day to day. So couldn't he come up with some kind of explanation that this has enabled us to find this solution, even if it had nothing to do with the announced objective, and then say it's victory. And by the way, he needs to do that soon because the November elections are coming up. He knows he can't simply let things drag out.
But if he did that and it was demonstrated that what he achieved was not at all what he announced, what he wanted to achieve with Iran, then he has a problem too. After all, that against him in the midterm elections, that you have that taco business that you sort of raise things pitch high and then you walk away. In fact, you have diminished America's prestige and its power by this foolish war. We alienated everybody. You've not succeeded in getting what you wanted from Iran. Even a small country like Iran, a weak country like Iran, under sanctions for years, has managed to withstand your power. So what good is it? So, I mean, there's just too many, how should I say, errors that he has made in terms of fashioning his discourse on Iran and his policy on Iran, that whichever way he goes is going to be a huge problem for him.
So is this the end of Trumpism? Is this the...
One hopes so.
I think a lot of people do hope so. Let me come back to India for a moment. Prime Minister Modi, shortly before the war, was cozying up to Netanyahu and showing that India and Israel had a great relationship. Has that changed? And
yes, in terms of visibility, there is a bit of a change. But nevertheless, I think at the heart of it, the government remains committed to a very strong relationship with Israel. The rank and file of the party believe that Israel needs our support, and in the background, not in the background, at the core of it is that Israel is extremely intolerant of terrorism and uses all kinds of means to smite these fellows, and that's sort of thing that India should do. So there's admiration. That's one part of it. The other is that, and that is real in terms of realpolitik and how a state has to look after the interests, that Israel has provided us with some very important niche technologies, which have enabled us to deal with Pakistan, especially including during Operation Sindhu. So I think there's all, and then in our short-range missiles and medium-range missile sector, this and that, they dominate that in terms of working together. So it's deeply embedded into our defense ecosystem, and that is very valuable to us. And I think, although this is not said, this is my hunch, that after all, Israel is very close to the United States. There's a strong technology connection between the two. So some of the technologies that may not be directly available from the United States can probably also be available through Israel. So I think there are these equities which India doesn't want to lose, but this is difficult. If when the Abraham Accords were in relatively good shape, and it appeared that Saudi Arabia may also join the bandwagon, then our very good relations with Israel and West Asian countries, even if Iran was very antagonist towards Israel, was a feasible foreign policy approach. But now that this whole thing has become very difficult in terms of now big divisions within the West Asia with regard to Israel and Israel's own expansionist policies, I think India's position vis-a-vis Israel has become a little more difficult to handle diplomatically, and the opposition is constantly attacking the government. That 2 days before this attack, you went to Israel and you were feted there, and you upgraded your strategic partnership with Israel. So that was an error of judgment.
Well, thank you very much, Kanwal, for these insights. We'll be back talking about these events as they unfold in the future, and looking forward to our next session together. Thank you very much.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.